everybody. How are you all going? I hope you all have had a great week, great weekend wherever you have been, and you're ready to go for another week. We've got a great show lined up for you today, whether you be watching this live, and of course if you want to ask a question, you can just simply add a question into the box there on the side. Of course, doesn't matter if you're watching this in replay or you're listening on the podcast at any time during the week, 24/7. You can go to live.eddale.co and leave a question, just as this week's hot seat did. And it's going to be a hot seat that I think a lot of you are going to be interested in, because it displays some of the key issues that people face when they're getting at people and say, bro, why aren't you downloading my report? You know, it's a banging report. Why aren't you downloading it? Come on. And we will figure that out for you live on the hot seat. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Got some great questions as well. And I also want to announce here on the broadcast first my USA fall tour dates. Now, all the details are going to come out very shortly, but I did want to put the dates in case, you know, this is a brand new workshop, and I'm really excited about it because it's designed to solve the key problems. A bit like a magic trick, really. You know, you come and spend a couple of days with me, and you walk out with your biggest problems with your business solved, and you know exactly what next steps you're going to do. And it's this amazing new technique. So not only do I want to solve your problems, I want to actually teach you the technique so that you can get the problem solved yourself, so you can take this away and do it. We're going to have an early bird deal as well as an installment deal for you. So it's going to be an extremely achievable price in the workshop. But I wanted to mention the dates right now. And of course we'll email you hopefully very, very shortly with all of the details and where you can go to sign up. But here's where I'm going. So on Saturday, the 29th and 30th of October, we will be in San Diego. Now, to be specific, we'll be in the La Jolla UTC area. But it's going to be a fantastic time. So we're going to be doing our West Coast edition. 2 days. It's a weekend, a Saturday and a Sunday. So you can come and, you know, catch SeaWorld and bring the family and come and do a great workshop. That's going to be the 29th and 30th of October. That's the Saturday and Sunday. Then the following weekend, which is the 5th and 6th of November, we are going to be in Orlando. So it's going to be a fantastic, so we're going to do West Coast version and we're going to do an East Coast version. So you can pick where you want to attend. So again, 5th and 6th in November in Orlando, which is going to be very, very exciting. And I can't wait for you to see this workshop and these particular details. If for any reason you're not on mailing lists that I have, you don't get any emails from me normally, then if you want to shoot me an email at eddale@mac.com, that's eddale@mac.com, I'll be sure to send you the specific details of the two workshops. I'll also, and I'll just mention this on the broadcast as well, is in the week in between, I'm quite keen to do some individual or private consulting. If you want me to come and spend the day or a couple of days with your team, I'm very interested in doing that. So it's something that I do relatively rarely these days, but last time I spent a couple of days in New York in April working with a company, helping them design a product and putting together that entire workshop, and sort of facilitated that with all of their team. And if that's something that interests you, shoot me an email to eddale@mac.com. Now, of course, that's a little bit more expensive than coming to the workshop for sure, but it enables me to literally work privately with you for an entire day or a couple of days with your team running a private workshop. So I'm going to be doing those dates around those 2 weekend workshops while I'm in the United States. And of course, I'll be in the UK, probably it'll be early next year in the UK, and we're going to do an Australian version of this workshop in November, sort of middle week of November is the way we're looking at it. The week of the 14th is when we're looking at doing it for Australia. But the big news is, and I'll just say those dates once more and then we'll get cracking into the show, Saturday 29th and Sunday the 30th of October in San Diego, so our West Coast edition, and then Saturday the 5th and 6th, Saturday and Sunday, 5th and 6th of November, will be in Orlando, and I'd love you to come along. It's going to be a pretty amazing workshop, if I do say so myself. And as I say, you'll see all the details, and I've got this cool little exercise for you to do. It's a lot of fun. I read a fantastic book on magic, and it may have influenced me a little bit in terms of doing a little magic trick for you on a video and all this sort of stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'd love to see you there. All right, with that, let's get on with the show. And we've got some great questions. And as I've said, we've got a really good hot seat coming up here as well. I'm going to save the hot seat for a little bit, though, because parts of the hot seat will be visual. You know, there'll be visual issues with the hot seat. So you may want to, if you're listening on the podcast, you may want to catch that section in the replay, having a look. I'll do my best to describe it and paint you a picture using the power of my words, but we'll see how we go with that, and we'll do that. But we've got plenty here to go on with. And the first question I'm going to have today, it's a bit of a gimme question really here, is James is saying, "Hi Ed, how can I start a business if I don't have a product yet?" Now, of course, the answer I'm going to give to that is you really need to do the challenge, right? Because if you're asking that question, which, by the way, James, is the wrong question, okay? Because it's not about the product, and I'll address the specific product issue because that's the question, so I don't have a lot of background detail or information. The first question you need to ask yourself when you're considering going into a business for yourself is, of course, what market am I going to serve? That's the key issue. It's not about product. You don't think of a product and then go into a market. That's the old century way of doing things, because you just can't invest the time and energy it needs. You can't be hands off a market anymore, because here's the problem. If you're hands off the market, you may get some initial success, but then you will be slammed by people who are actually passionate, interested, engaged, and are indeed influencers in that market. So you've got to choose and pick your market first. And as I mentioned with challenge.co, which is live and available for you right now, we take you through all the steps for figuring this out. Market, what are their pains, gains, and jobs to be done, etc., etc., etc. Now, the fifth business focus is, of course, to create valuable, listen to that, valuable products and services that serve your market that they're willing to pay for. And that's where we need to look. So let me give you some tips in terms of doing that. And it comes back to the vital question of pains, gains, and jobs to be done. You know, what are the pains in your market? Where do they want to go? What are the things that they're always complaining about? What are the things that they want to learn how to do? These are the sorts of questions, and again, you can download all of these as part of the challenge. You just need to sign up and download and get cracking. What are those pains, gains, and jobs to be done? When I'm working with private clients, that is the key thing to understand, for me to understand business, because everything becomes easier from that point, because all of a sudden your opt-in pages become easy because you address a pain. You deliver, in return for the email, I'm going to point you in the right direction. You may not solve their pain, but you can give them, hey, here's 3 things that may work for you. All those sorts of things. So understanding that. Now, so the product or service that you create is all about doing that, but doing that in the next level. So you're creating a product or a service that the market needs, and you do that based on your understanding. So rather than just coming up for a product idea in isolation and thinking, oh gee, mousetraps, they're a great idea. First of all, we've got to find those markets. And the reason we do this with the products is that we can so much easier identify markets first and listen to that market. You know, there's never been an easier, cheaper time to start up a business. It's fantastic, but you need to the quid pro quo, if you will, of this is you need to respect and understand and serve that market first. Okay, that's just because otherwise you do what, by the way, probably 90% of people do already, and they think exactly like you asked the question, James. I need to think up a product. I want to start a cafe, without doing that. So they think product first. That's the standard way of starting a business, and it's flawed. It's risky. It's super risky. You may come up with a product and you may hit on something which becomes a viral success, and it's all right. But I can't teach like that. I can't teach for the 1% of the time that happens. It's much smarter from a 99% perspective to really get to know your market, understand it, serve it, build a list in your market, so when you do have a product or service of value, you can tell people about it. And that theme happens over and over and over again. Had a really interesting meeting in the last couple of weeks, and something I'm really, really passionate about at the moment is crowdfunding. I think it's the future. I think it's the future of the information marketing business. So you may not have heard of crowdfunding. You may have heard of Kickstarter or Indiegogo. This is places where people can get products funded before they actually build them, and then once they've got the money, they can then build and deliver the products. And it's incredibly popular, and it's getting more and more popular. It's really matured a lot over the last couple of years in particular. It's never been a popular place for information marketing products for two historical reasons. One is Kickstarter, for whatever reason, didn't like information product courses. And I'm not talking about courses about making money. I'm talking about piano stool restoration or a course on how to learn a guitar or any of those. They're much better now. But in the early days, they just knocked back anybody who wanted to actually sell a course. It just didn't fit into their view of what they would crowdfund. Indiegogo, the second largest of the crowdfunders, their problem was that they use PayPal for their facilitation. So they collect all the money on your behalf, and then once the product or service is successfully crowdfunded, then they give you the money. Now the problem was PayPal was freezing the accounts, so you couldn't. So all these people had given you money, they'd successfully funded your project, and you were snookered because you couldn't get the cash out of PayPal. Now, there are much better solutions now, and I believe that Indiegogo have worked on that with PayPal, so that again is better. But there are even better services for information marketers. And look, I'll go into this another time, but what I want to why I want to make the point is, here's how I would think about product creation going forward, and it's certainly something that I'm looking at and very passionate about. If you follow our focus steps, our 6 business focus steps, so you've gone and understood your market, you know what their pains, gains, and jobs are to be done. You serve the market by social media and by helping people out and by being a participant and building up your influence in that market. You understand where the traffic's coming from. Where can we get traffic for that market? And you are, and this is key, you build a list, okay? So all of a sudden, rather than creating a product or service for that market with all the risk that entails, because even if you've done all of those 4 steps, you can still have a dud product. Why not create a crowdfund campaign? And I'm seeing really smart marketers and magcasters, scroofcasters, and people with information products start to be doing this. As I say, we're a bit behind the 8 ball because of those historical reasons that I just mentioned. So here's the cool part of this, right? Think about it. So what does actually a crowdfunding campaign entail? Now, it's not nothing, like there's work involved, but in some ways it takes me back to the old days of copywriting and testing a product with direct marketing back in the 50s, 60s and 70s when, Gary Halbert was the greatest of all time when it came to direct marketing, and they would do tests and they'd do product tests. So here's what you do. So now a good Kickstarter page is a lot like a great sales letter and a great mini launch document. It's literally got a sales letter in it. It's got a great video explaining the product. There's lots of information about features, and you've got a whole bunch of rewards. Depending on how much a person commits, you give a whole lot of rewards. It's really, really fascinating. But here's the cool thing. what have you actually done? Well, like, what are the costs? You've created a video of some kind. You've written the sales copy, and if you understand your pains, gains, and jobs to be done, then the sales copy is much easier than if you don't. So it's making a whole bunch of assumptions. But here's the cool thing. For a video and a sales page, which may take you, a week or two to put together, you can then put up this crowdfunding campaign. And the huge mistake people make is they put up the crowdfunding campaign and think, beauty. If you build it, they will come. This is not Field of Dreams. There is no Kevin Costner anywhere in the district. This is all about you then marketing the heck out of that crowdfunding campaign. What's the number one way by so far it's not funny? Ask Kickstarter, ask Possible, ask Indiegogo. It is email lists, email campaigns, letting your market know about this Kickstarter. And if you're clever, you actually let the market know. Involvement breeds commitment. So all of a sudden, right, instead of taking James's question and saying, how can I start a business if I don't have a product yet? Well, you build a market first. You ask that market question first. And I wouldn't build the product. I would create the crowdfunding campaign, because I'm spending a week instead of, who knows, weeks, months, a year, I don't know. Depends on the product or the service you're building. And one of two things is going to happen. One, you're going to get the crowdfunding campaign up. In other words, because here's a key mechanic of the crowdfunding campaign for those of you who are not too familiar with it. Basically, you have a period of time. Typically, it's 30 days. At the end of the 30 days, and you have a crowdfunding target, which means you'll proceed with the project. So here's the thing. So let's say it's $10,000. So if you make above $10,000, if you get $10,000 in commitments, when somebody makes a commitment, they are not charged. There's no money taken from their credit cards. It's only once the Kickstarter or the Indiegogo, the crowdfunding campaign, is actually funded, then the card's charged, and then the money is then passed to the creator. Really sweet, because if it fails to get funded, everybody gets their money back. No harm, no foul. So wouldn't it be good if you can't get somebody to fund and create a great deal for them in a Kickstarter? How are you going to make a successful product? This is incredible when you think about it. This is all the best. There used to be, frankly, an illegal way to market in the United States. It was called dry testing, where you would, and this was in the old days of mail, when direct mail literally meant mail, where what would happen is people would send 1,000 letters about a product. They'd get responses for those letters, and they would tell from the response and the orders that they received whether people could get, would buy this particular product. And hopefully if they got a successful campaign, then they would go. Now, why was that made illegal? Because what would happen is people would collect the money and then never deliver the product. But now, thanks to the Jobs Act and crowdfunding and all that, this is a totally legit way of doing it. And it's a way that protects both parties. So you can do crowdfunding to create your product. And to me, that is the number one way going forward. If you've built a tribe, if you've built, our 1,000 true fans, or our first thing that we want to build is our 1,000 true emails. If we've got a list of 1,000 people, we can start to test things. We can start to see whether they're interested in this product. So instead of creating the product, you build the sales letter around the product, you build the video around the product, and then your market will tell you whether you've hit the nail on the head or not. And if you don't, no skin off anybody's nose. You go and you try again. You retool it. There are many, many examples of Kickstarters that initially failed to fund, then the creators retooled them, and then they became great products again. So, James, long way of answering that question, but I think I wanted to, because I'm so pumped about crowdfunding and what it means, as I think it's going to revolutionize the info marketing industry, the industry of teaching, serving markets, niche markets. I think it's going to revolutionize things. As I say, it's gone off to a slow start because of those things I mentioned, but I think it's going to be pretty exciting. So that is how I would do product creation now. All right. Diane asks a really interesting question here. Hello, Ed. Should I try join Masterminds to grow my business? The answer to that is a big fat yes. It's a crucial element of success. Now, you might go back as far as, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. One of the key things he found of successful people, the Henry Fords and the steel guy, Andrew, it'll come to me. You know who I'm talking about. You're probably yelling at your podcast right now. But key part of it was masterminds. There is no question that the mastermind that I am in is the most valuable thing, that, the most valuable asset I have. And it's something, this is people forget, part of the origin story of the challenge was that I wanted to prove something in the first initial challenge, was that I encouraged people to join teams and to encourage people creating masterminds effectively, so that you could use that power. The reason, going to, pardon the plug, coming to an event like we're going to hold at the end of October in San Diego, or the first week of November in Orlando and San Diego, you know what I mean? The power of meeting like-minded people, and indeed part of the magic trick is that you get way better solutions by putting the problem in front of a group of people rather than trying to nut it out yourself. It's a classic case of 1 + 1 = 3. Now, there are paid masterminds. There are free masterminds. Let me give you some tips on both. There are paid masterminds which are just absolutely brilliant and typically quite expensive to get into as a general rule, but the ones that have been going a long time are ones that are really worth it. And I think they justify the expense, inverted commas, because if you are super established and you've got a business going, then, one idea you can get from a mastermind could pay for the entire, typically they're $20,000, to be part of. Now, if you're going, let's go to the other end of the spectrum. With masterminds, that I think just forming masterminds for the sake of forming masterminds, and this is now 11 years of the challenge talking, doesn't tend to work, okay? Because I think it's important to know people first. The reason my mastermind is so successful is because we were friends first. We met each other at conferences. We knew each other. We had face-to-face conversations. And so I think masterminds formed off the basis of you already having met the group of people, that you know them in some way prior to forming a mastermind, I think is a much smarter way of doing things. So don't let be the first contact that you make with somebody that you want to mastermind with, hey, do you want to mastermind? And I know people do this, and it's rarely effective. You're much better off going to an event, going to a workshop, mine, somebody else's, doesn't matter. This is what I think the power of events. Because again, how did I get into my mastermind? We all went to this one event in San Francisco. It was back in 2003, would you believe? And it was a remarkable mastermind. We'd all paid to be there, but we got to know each other. We got to hang out. We met. We enjoyed each other's company. We all had the same perverse sense of humor. And the actual mastermind didn't emerge till a couple of years later, because we knew each other, right? And that's what I think the basis of a really successful mastermind is. A halfway house, if you will, and something that I think is a great idea, is have a look for meetups in your particular area. Have a look at people who are like-minded. There are plenty. Go to meetup.com and go to those events. Now, there's a percentage of you, and I count myself amongst them, that the idea of going to a networking event, you'd rather slam an appendage in a car door. They're obviously not for you. But, for people who don't mind that sort of thing, it can be a great way of doing things. So here's the bottom line, Diane, on your question is masterminds are fabulous. And I think they're a key part of success. I think you look at any, masterminds, scenes is another thing, locations, places, Silicon Valley, the left bank in Paris for all the Impressionist artists. They all lived in a very small area. Melbourne here, Australia, has got a fantastic online marketing scene. San Diego, La Jolla, I often joke, is like the world capital of online marketing because it's such. I suppose because it's got such a nice. The weather's so good that it's a very nice place to live. If it's expensive, but I suppose they're doing well, so everybody's happy. So these scenes, these masterminds, there's no question it's part of your success. Now, having said all of that, you can start super small. A forum, you can kill 3 birds with one stone here. A forum in your market. Working in a forum and becoming an active forum member, helping and serving others in your market, is part of that process of masterminding and engaging with people. There's a real power to it. It can be off-putting to some people, but there are so many ways that you can go about doing it in this day and age. So I absolutely agree with that. Okay, that is, so I'm a big thumbs up for being in a mastermind of some kind, paid or one that you've developed up yourself. It's great. There are all the wonderful maxims of mastermind. Try to be the dumbest person in your mastermind. That's a great way to be. Punch up is an awesome thing to be in a mastermind, and I suppose paid masterminds are a great way to get involved in things like that. So yeah, thumbs up for masterminds. Stuart asks here, hi Ed, how to get a higher email open rate? That's a great question, Stuart, because there's one thing that is universal and across the board. People are opening less and less emails, yet some people still have really remarkable open rates. So open rate, just to define it, is the number of people who receive the email compared to the ones that actually click and open it and read the contents of the email. And typically, most industry, like if I look at my little neck of the woods, open rates for us are quite low, 10 to 15%, which is actually good, believe it or not, for our industry. Yet there are, particularly in niches, people are getting 50%, 60% open rates. Now, what's the key to all of this? I bet you can guess. Pains, gains, and jobs to be done. The thing about, and the other thing, the corollary of this, and I can't wait because I'm catching up with Dean Jackson next week. He's doing a 3-day workshop here in Sydney, Australia. And like I said, I attend these workshops as well. I'm going up as a participant. And his whole cheese and whiskers methodology is so important. So many headlines in emails are instant whiskers. They're all about, buying something or, I can build your business. They're so clearly, I want something from you, that if you're busy or if you're just going, because it's so easy to swipe and get rid of an email these days, if you haven't got time, then they don't attract attention, right? Because they're all whiskers. They all feel like marketing. Whereas if you're addressing a specific pain or something that they're having a problem with, or something they really want to know where they want to get to, or you want to show them how to do something specific, they're far more likely to open the email. So again, understanding pains, gains, jobs to be done. I think another thing that it's getting less and less of an excuse now too is segmenting your lists as well will improve open rates dramatically. So break things up. So if I send an email and I'm doing USA workshops, then typically after the first email to let everybody know, because believe it or not, people like to fly in from other, they make a trip of it and they can tax deduct it and all that sort of stuff. But typically, only people in the USA are going to come to the USA workshops and vice versa. So, you geographically detail, or for example, very popular campaigns like the Ryan Levesque style Ask campaigns, where based on the responses to an autoresponder series, you provide different answers based on what their biggest issues are. We can be getting a lot more sophisticated with email. One size fits all email is just not going to cut it in going forward. You may have to start out that way because that's the way you start out, but that's cool, right? Ultimately, though, if you want to, if you're asking me about higher open rates, then that's the way to go. And so that's my biggest of, there are 2 or 3 things there, Stuart, that you can do right away, I think, to increase open rates. But it all comes back to that market understanding. All right, Miriam says here, how do you choose which opportunities to chase? Well, if you're asking about me, I think the key ability that you really want to develop there is an ability to say no to things. And it's really hard, particularly for us entrepreneurs. It can be really, really tricky indeed. So that's why I think understanding your market is so important, because I think you really have to concentrate and focus on a particular market at that top level. Now, the products and services and the single target markets inside that market can give you that need for variety, which entrepreneurs are so desperate to need. So, how do I specifically do it? Well, see this board behind me here? The biggest chunk of the board, that part here, is what's my options column. And I just whack, as ideas come to me and potential opportunities come up to me, I'll just write them on a post-it note and I'll whack them up there. Now there's a certain size, right? And you can see right now it's fairly full. I'm probably going to have to go through and do a retrospective and narrow it down a bit, because, what happens is that there are post-it notes that sit on there for 5 months and you go, well, are you serious about that? Is that something that's really going to be important? So you can just put it away. But here's the thing. In the moment, it gives me time to think and not be reactionary. I just write the opportunity down, pop it up there. And so it'll be an epic. So then on the Monday morning, which I just did before, I just cleaned my board up before I do this broadcast each week. Then I take a good 5 minutes to have a look at all of that. I scan every single thing that's there in my options and say, well, what's important? What's going to, what's the most important thing that I'm trying to do at the moment? What am I looking to achieve? And based on that, I pull specific stories into my ready column, which is this middle column here. And you can see there's only 6 post-it notes in that, because I restrict the amount I do, because if you're over, like most people deal with just the options column, and that's what a to-do list looks like, right? And you look at that, and entrepreneurs in particular, this is what we know from our huge study that we did last year. We know that entrepreneurs in particular just can get, bright light syndrome, right? Squirrel is another way of putting it. And if you see a big list there, you go blind to that list. It literally blinds you to everything that's on there. And as 60% of entrepreneurs aren't good with lists, full stop, in the first place. So, Kanban for entrepreneurs, a Kanban board is so brilliant that it keeps all my options there visually. I can see them at any time, at any place. But I know when I'm looking at, I ask myself on a weekly basis, what is the most important thing I should be doing right now? And that's the time where I look at options and I decide, are they things that are there? And then the final thing I'll say, and I'll bring this back, is that we want to start less and finish more. Okay, you'll hear me say that all the time, and it's a great saying. Don't know where I got it from, but I certainly didn't come up with it. But start less, finish more. And that's why it's visually very important, in the done column, which is empty at the moment because I haven't done anything except once I've done the live broadcast, I'll move the live broadcast sticker over into the done column. But at the end, just before, I looked at my done column for the week, and pretty sucky week as it turned out. But I looked at it from the perspective of what were the things that I wanted to achieve, what are the things that moved the business forward, what are the things, that I needed to deal with. Because this board, I have to look at personal, I have to look at family, I have to look at health, I have to look at business stuff. It's my board, right? It's me, it's my life on a board. And it's so important because so many entrepreneurs need that visual reminder. So that is another way, because I've got that visually look at what I'm doing, I can say, well, am I working on the right things, or am I doing things, or did stuff happen during the week which was just hard to deal with? And because stuff does happen, right? You can't have a perfect week all the time. It never happens. So, well, it does happen sometimes. You have a good week. It's relatively clear of bombs being thrown. And that is the thing. So for me, Miriam, my Kanban board keeps me grounded in the sense of understanding that. And we teach this in Achiever Formula and Kanban for Entrepreneurs. These are courses that we have available. You can see more information at eddale.co, the blog. We teach these, and it's been a revolution. It really is. Probably, for years, it's been the biggest. You talk about contributions and things. Giving back to the marketplace, understanding these agile methodologies and applying them into entrepreneur businesses has been awesome. So that's definitely how I do that. And interestingly, great segue into Carol's question here, which is, Ed, how do you know when you've done enough for the day and should stop working on your business? I have very low tolerance at this point. Lunchtime. No, in all seriousness, the third column here, see these 2 stickers here? You'll be able to see in the background where my finger is. That's my today column. And I pull, and it's only got space for 2 post-it notes. So at the start of every day, I look at my ready column and I okay, given what I've got for the day, because you've got a pretty good idea of what's coming up. You may be working, you may be doing a 9 to 5, so you've only got half an hour at lunch to work on your business or whatever it happens to be, or you've got to go out for a meeting, or you've got a bunch of Skype consulting. So who knows, right? But you have a good idea. You look at your calendar and you look at what's realistic. So I pull no more than 2 tickets and put them into my today column. And I make sure that if I'm pulling them out into today column, I've got every intention of doing them. And here's the great thing. Regardless of all the things that happen and you have to deal with during the day and emails and all those things that pop up, if I've done those 2 tickets, I know I've moved my business forward for the day. And I can be satisfied with that day. Okay. And you can give if you've got 2 important tickets and you're done, then you've got a choice at that point. You can kick back and play Clash Royale, or you can pull another ticket from the ready column and say, hey, okay, I've got time for today. But rather than most people deal with the option, they're like a to-do list, and there's a never-ending thing. You can't make a dent in it. That's by very nature of their to-do list. You've got literally dozens, hundreds of items on this to-do list. So even if you do 2 things, it looks like you've done nothing. Visually, your brain goes, oh, geez, I've just done nothing. Whereas this way, by limiting, the WIP, they call it in Kanban, the work in progress, by limiting that, you actually achieve way more. It sounds strange, but the more you limit yourself, the better the better you work, the more fun you have, the more productive you are, the more you get done. As I say, it's really counterintuitive, but it actually works really well. And I find particularly for people who have day jobs, in fact, I was answering a question in the Achiever Formula Facebook group this morning. They were saying, well, I work 9 to 5, and when I've got that spare 10 minutes, what do I do? And I said, well, if you're working during the day, then before you head off to work, you look at your board and you say, well, okay, I'm working for the man 9 to 5, so I'll just have to do whatever I have to do. But maybe you have 1 ticket in there, which is maybe a 10-minute free writing session. So if you do have a 10 minutes, you don't have to think about it. The problem most people have is they spend all their time thinking about what I should do, and then they look at the to-do list, and of course they see these lines and lines and lines of things, and they just get overwhelmed, right? What happens when you have a whole bunch of choices? You make no choice. Whereas this way, with a Kanban board, right, okay, I know, look, my day is a write-off, but if I do have 10 minutes, I'm going to do this 10-minute free writing session to plan my next blog article, for example, as one thing. That's the power of this methodology. So that you've got one thing, and if you do that, you move that forward. Because, let's face it, entrepreneurs can be super manic depressive. I would coach private clients, and one week they would be super up because they perceive that they got a whole bunch done, and the next week they'd be, business suicidal, thinking that they suck at business and they suck at everything because their perception was they didn't have anything to do. Because they didn't have a visual record of what they actually did, we forget all the non-mandatory stuff that we do. It's only stuff that's high emotional resonance we remember. And typically, of course, what has the most high emotional resonance? Pain, right? So we usually remember all the bad stuff that happens. And if you've got a 9 to 5 and you're trying to build something on the side, then that's the problem that you have, right? You get into this loop of, oh, I suck. Oh, I've had a horrible week, etc., etc., etc. All right, one more question here before we go to our hot seat. Leah asks, "Hi Ed, my goal is to grow my Magcast." Sorry about this, people. I've got an itchy nose. I know I need to run social install campaigns. Are you recommending Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat as the best channels for app installs? And what do you recommend as a realistic budget for a speedy impact?" Okay, let's break this down. The first thing I would say is make sure that you've got your sequence, your download sequence all sorted out. So what do I mean by that? So what I mean is, what is your current download stats, your impressions, as they say on the App Store? So how many people actually searched and viewed for your product compared to the number of people who actually went to your download page compared to the number of people who have actually downloaded your app. Now, 40% of people who view your page should download your app on average, according to Apple's own figures. Think about it. They've looked at it. They've said, yes, I'm interested in this. They've gone to your page. It's typically a free download. So you want about 40% of people doing that. My experience is a lot of people are a lot lower, and there's so many things that you can do. You need to make sure you have that right first, because otherwise you're throwing good money after bad, because all you're getting is App Store views, and if you can't convert those views, then you're wasting money or spending way much more money than you need to do. So that's the first proviso. Right now, as we speak today, the number one place I think to test for app installs and downloads is Facebook. Facebook themselves, the numbers are extraordinary. 94% of people who use Facebook interact through a mobile device. Okay, so that's check. That's the market that we're after. 2 is the app install ad unit, which is literally you can download an app from inside of Facebook, and you've all seen these, particularly if you're looking on a mobile device. That is the most effective ad unit by so far. It is not funny. So you've got all of these things working in your favor. Now, how much money for quick results? Wrong question. You should be spending $20 only per test. Right there, $20 should get you about 1,000 impressions. In other words, 1,000 views of your ad on Facebook. Obviously, markets will wildly vary. But you should be and the other piece of advice I should say is you narrowly target your audience. Okay, you don't go wide. You don't go for all golfers. You go for people with putting problems. You go for people who've liked a certain page, maybe a putting expert. All of those things are absolutely crucial. So you spend $20 at a time and you run experiments. Okay, so that to me is the most important. It's not about how much you spend for quick results. It's how many experiments can you run at $20 a pop on Facebook to find something that gives you a positive ROI, and then you start applying the money. Okay, that's how you do it. So at each stage, you're running experiments. So there's no excuse. There's literally no excuse for pissing money up against a wall when you're starting to build traffic, particularly with Facebook. Now, if we were having this conversation approximately 2 months from today, pay per tap advertising will be in Apple's App Store. This will be a gold mine. This will be a gold rush like we haven't seen since Google pay-per-click. It is going to be astounding. And you'll be able to get, why? 1 cent clicks. There are no minimum clicks. You can also click on app name. You can actually advertise on app names. Right? It's going to be amazing. And Apple have said, why are they doing this? Why have Apple gone mental with this? It's because they actually want to boost up independent software developers and publishers. They don't want the Clash Royales of the world just spray advertising right across the App Store. They don't want Supercell to be doing all of that. They want independent. They want somebody who's got this great kiteboarding app or this great kiteboarding Scriptcast to be able to market to kiteboarders. It is going to be astounding. It is going to change the game. I can't wait for it. It's going to be just brilliant. So that's going to be the next best. So far and away, Facebook is my number one as we speak. That will change instantaneously the moment we're able to access pay-per-tap advertising with Apple. What else did you mention there? Instagram and Snapchat. Snapchat's really out of the question just at the moment. There's no good way to, unless you're spending huge numbers, to get any sort of traction on Snapchat at the moment. Instagram is really interesting depending on your market. And the great thing about Instagram is you can do it with your, it's Facebook, right? You use the Facebook Power Editor, you use your Facebook advertising, you use your Facebook ad unit, like it's great. Facebook will very helpfully actually automatically advertise for you on Instagram, even if you didn't ask them, unless you check a box saying, no, I don't want to do that. Please make sure you check that box, because the ads they create automatically for Instagram suck. They're terrible. But Instagram app installs are definitely worth testing. Doesn't work in all markets, of course, but there are certain markets where it's working really, really well. You have to test it. But right now, as we speak, Facebook is the ads. Tiny market audiences. Do not go broad. Tiny, tiny, tiny audiences. I'd much rather you have 100 different Facebook ads with message to market match, so that you can get that download and you can get that copyright, so that you can address the specific pain for this specific single target market that you're using. And that is what we want to get to. Brian asks here, Ed, have you ever tried contracts? That's a weird one. I have, but always seem to have an issue with them. I do have contacts occasionally, and I've worn them, but not for a long time. Not since I got the multifocals, because even with the contacts, I'd need reading glasses, which was I was like, when the optometrist last year said, Ed, you need reading glasses. I said, look, I've been coming to you for 20 years. I'm not sure if you noticed. I've already got glasses. I don't need more glasses. Turns out you do need more glasses. Great. So since I got the multifocals, I'm literally too lazy to do it. There you go. Fun fact for the day. All right. I promised you a ripper hot seat, and a ripper hot seat we are going to deliver now. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, as I say, I'm going to do my best to describe this for you, but you may want to visit eddale.co/blog later in the week and actually watch this section of the video. We're going to be about 45 odd minutes into the YouTube video. You can go to my YouTube channel to watch it. You can go to the blog to watch it. You'll be able to look anywhere. So from Wednesday on, you'll be able to see the replay and go to about 45 minutes or so in, so you can actually look at this particular opt-in page. Now, let me read you the question I got first. Okay, so let's get some context here. So let's pop in our comments here. Okay, Jody says, if you have time for a review, of course we do. For New Zealanders, no problem. We have a great webinar replay with an affiliate offer at a no-brainer price. But we don't know if we should just social share this page or put an option in front of it. Sorry, not an option, an opt-in in front of it. If we don't, we will build a buyers list over a tire kicker list. So what they're saying there is, if we build, a list of people who have actually bought something, then that's a more valuable list, and it's absolutely the case, as opposed to a tire kicker list. Bit unsure, appreciate your advice. And so it's the site is the House Sitting Academy, and the webinar that they have done is Cheap Flights. So let's have a look. So let me click some buttons here, and let's bring that up there, put that there. Okay. All right, we're looking now at, I've opened this up in Safari, and we're looking at what we call above the fold. So this is the thing that just comes up for a standard size looking website. And we're seeing a typical website. We've got a banner. We've got, step up to stand out, Academy navigation, enhancers, downloads, more resources, the must-know strategies for finding cheap flights. Let's jump straight in so you can get out there. So the first thing is that there is nothing here to do above the fold. First thing that you need to be able to, the action step must be seeable above the fold, because most people won't bother to scroll down. You've already lost them at this point. And right now, if you're looking at this screen, there is literally, what is it? half the screen probably in area, or maybe even more, of a huge banner which has got a whole bunch of sites of the world, and it has the must-know strategies for finding cheap flights. And for people with various colorblind issues, probably wouldn't even be able to read for finding cheap flights. So the headline is buried amongst this image. So the thing that stands out most, if I'm looking at this page, is probably the House Sitting Academy logo in the top right-hand corner. That's where my eyes are drawn to, and there's nothing for me to do there. So that's a problem. So if I'm landing on this site, and they're not saying how they're driving traffic to this site, but regardless of, even if I was targeted, there's nothing for people to do here. Okay, so that's the very first issue. So if we scroll down, let's I tried to scroll down the screen. Here we go. The hottest and most up-to-date insider. So if we go to this second screen now, we've got the hottest and most up-to-date insider secrets from New Zealand's Travel Agent of the Year, which is, nice bit of, social proof. New Zealand's Travel Agent of the Year. Now, where are we targeting people? Are we targeting people just in New Zealand? Because if you were doing this ad for a US audience, they don't care. They don't care, and they wouldn't even know what NZ is. NZ, did they mean Arizona and they misspelt it? So where's your market? Now, of course, if you are targeting New Zealanders, then they know what NZ is. Not a problem. That's fine. We can use that shortcut. We were super fortunate to grab hold of Becky Power from Nomad Fly, New Zealand's Travel Agent of the Year, to get the inside scoop on the absolute best and latest tips for finding the cheapest flights available in the market right now. Now, this is a cool thing. Like, I imagine if I'm... remember, this is the House Sitting Academy, so I assume that they're doing something to do with house sitting, which is a sweet and very cool thing. Just as a quick side note, I'm noticing a lot of info marketers that I know that have established their business. They're moving towards, they're making their, $70,000 clear a year. They're using house sitting as a fantastic way because they can run their business from anywhere. So they can deep dive and explore a new country or community by house sitting. It's a fantastic thing, particularly people with pets, because they will literally, I know friends of mine who have stayed in these amazing places because little Boo Boo and Flip Flip, the two dogs, the Pomeranians or whatever they are, need to be looked after while their rich owners are away, and they will literally let people have the house to insert a pet sit. But I digress. It's a cool thing, right? It's a cool thing. Yet trouble is, I don't get any of that cool stuff from the first above the fold. Then there's a second thing. Now notice there's been nothing for me to hit, punch, tap, act on. And I'm already, we know most people are on a page for maybe 3 seconds at the most. So finally, in literally the third screen down, we get to this screenshot, which is, and I can click to play, and it's the top strategies for finding cheap flights. Okay, so, and if I click to play that, which I have, and it actually may, maybe I shouldn't have done that because I might stuff up the, actually, no, there we are.
Thanks so much for joining us.
So, I don't think you can hear that, which is, so now, okay, look at that, 57 minutes and 42 seconds. Hang on, let me pause this just in case it's coming through. 57 minutes and 42 seconds. So I'm going to have to learn about cheap flights by watching 57 minutes of this webinar. This is not effective as an opt-in page, right? It just and if I click learn more about Nomad Fly here, great, but the promise of this page was cheap flights. Okay, how do I do this? Cheap flights. And I go to the Nomad Fly Me page, and I'm having a look here, and it's a bit of a blog, and it's a report, which is great. Oh, it's a $49 report. It's all on one page, and there's very little to sell on it. And in fact, I can't even figure out how to get back. So again, if I look at the, what's going on here, what's my goal? The thing I always ask a private client is, what's the job of this page? And if we're doing this hot seat live in front of a crowd, I'll ask the crowd, what's the job of this page? And if you're looking at it, There's no way I can see. What is it meant to be doing? Are you meant to be downloading something? Are you meant to be watching something? Are you meant to be doing something? That's the thing. But of course, hang on a second. I've realized something. I have been using my desktop to look at this page, right? My desktop. What's the problem with that, everybody? What did I just say about 94%? If they're sending through via an email here, if they're sending, and we know, and most people, if they're looking on social media or something, where are they accessing this from? A mobile device. So why am I even reviewing this on the desktop? I wonder what percentage of people are actually looking at this site. So, of course, we should be optimized. We all know right now that we must be optimizing our sites first for mobile. So let's go to the mobile site because that's the one that most people are going to actually be looking at this on. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay. There is no optimization here. We've got our banner. What we're seeing here is, well, I can hardly see it because I'm seeing the House Sitting Academy. The logo doesn't fit on the screen. It hasn't been optimized. They're using a plugin. They're using the name of it. It just drives me crazy. I can never get it. Basically, you can add plugins to blogs, right, which will, inverted commas, format your page for mobile. These suck dog's balls, okay? They are the worst thing you can possibly do. You need to design your site for mobile, particularly when you're asking people when they're going to an opt-in page or any time or any type of approach where we're trying to do anything that we're doing. I've just turned the phone sideways and you can still see here it's still a problem, but most people are holding it in their hand. So this is a disaster, right? We've got a drop dialog box which has got cheap flights, learn languages fast, health on the road, downloads, more resources, house sitting magazine, blogs to, right? Nothing to do. I don't know how people have gone in here. Now we've gone into the, let's jump straight in so you can get out there. This is the same copy as the page that we looked on the desktop, but of course we've had to scroll down multiple screens until we've seen the video here where people need to click on. And on the phone, of course, it's not even the most obvious thing on this page. The most obvious thing is a huge button which is learn more about Nomad Fly here. So this page, unfortunately, is a disaster for online, right? It's just, I'm sorry, gals, but it's dreadful, right? Nobody's going to go scroll. Look at all this scrolling through. And even worse is like the page, the view that they're getting on their phone. I'm looking at this on an iPhone device, right? People who spend money, the people who have disposable incomes are looking on an iPhone. Okay, it's that simple. Sorry for all of those of you who got Android devices there, but this is not a value judgment. It's just, it's just the way it is. I'm sure if I fired up my Galaxy here, I could probably have a look here too. If I suddenly go blank, there's a huge thunderstorm going on here right now. So apologies. I think you won't pick it up with the microphone, but let me tell you, it is raining cats and dogs with that magnificent Melbourne weather. But do you see there is no... On this screen in front of me, the very screen that I arrive at, there should be the action, the job that I want done here, and enough information, a pane, again, a job's to be done to encourage me to want to look at this. Now, I would argue to you that you would be much better off, in my view, if you're getting people to this page, you want to build a list. I think getting people to watch a 57-minute webinar just to get people hopefully to go to a cool, and this service might be fabulous, right? But you're doing it this Nomad design, the service for the cheap tickets, it may be the best thing ever for great cheap tickets, but you're doing it a huge disservice by expecting people to, on the basis of a drive-by, to expect them to dedicate 57 minutes of their time. You would be much better off giving them a one-pager report with the key highlight points. Here's how they do great things. Here's how they do. Are you interested? Get people to put their hands up. Think about our 8 profit activators, as Dean Jackson would call them. What's our first one is identifying the market and getting them to put their hands up. There's nothing here to put your hands up. So it's not surprising me that you're not getting much of a result here, because even with the best intention in the world, there's nowhere here for me to give you any action whatsoever. So my advice here is you've got to burn this down, and you've got to start again. Look at sites that have one job to be done, right? That's what you need to look at. You need to look for, when you're looking at what's trying to be done and where things are going to be at, you need to find sites. There's one thing to be done. You're bringing people to this page, and the job to be done here is not your job to be done is get an email address, okay? People don't care about that. They want their pain solved. And so if they are, they've got to this site somehow, and that's why so much of this work is actually done before getting to the site, but let's assume for whatever reason they're attracted and they're coming to this site. You need to deliver on that pain point, that gain point, that job's to be done immediately. Here's how you do this. Sign this up, and I'm going to send you a report straight away, a one-page. They don't care how long the report is. It can be one page. You can go to Fiverr and get a beautiful page design for $5, $10 if you want it in 24 hours. Have it really nice, beautiful PDF that people will be far more thankful for you, and probably do far greater service to Nomad than making them watch this webinar. Now, this webinar is probably great content, and as you build your audience, you want people to be able to... Oh, Larry and George are not happy about the thunder. You want people to be able to look at these things, and you want to be able to people to... And the webinar and the interview is probably fantastic. Can you edit out 5-minute bits and put it on the YouTube channel, or put it on your web post, just juicy parts? Can you get, so people have, if they've got 5 minutes, boy, I'll look at something for 5 minutes or 3 minutes. And, you need people to do, you're asking a prospect here to do all the heavy lifting, and that's not fair on them. And so that's what you need to look at here for this particular page. So gang, a lot of work. Here's the cool thing, right? You've got an awesome market here. This is a brilliant market. The house sitting thing, the travel, it's a brilliant market that you're in. So many cool things to do, but we need to build our tribe, and we need to do that by serving our tribe, right? And yes, you want to test, but you want to test buying. You'd offer the Nomad service after you've solved and help people solve it, because maybe one of the ways of solving people, because definitely, like we all know, there's definitely an inside world of getting cheap flights, right? There's definitely a real skill to it. And I want to know those secrets. I want to understand how that is. That's a really cool, definitely a pain point. Paying too much is a pain point. There's no question about that, right? I totally get it. But, you've got to be able to think about the context in which somebody is looking at your stuff. Because if you're expecting them to spend 57 minutes when they've just arrived at this website, and by the way, they're not even getting down to the website because it takes 3 full screen scrolls to even get down there, and then don't even start me on your mobile presence because it sucks, right? So, but here, I just want to, right, that's the tough love part. I just want to be honest with you. But the good news is it's a great niche, right? You just have to serve it properly. And you can't serve it properly by dishing out, making your tribe do all the hard work. You need to be somebody who makes it easy for your tribe. Serve your tribe. Give them nice, digestible chunks of cool information. Break up that interview. Come up with, 2 or 3 minute chunks. Maybe make the interview as a podcast, because if people are subscribed to your podcast and they're listening to this, just like lots of people are listening to this on the podcast right now, they're in the mood. They're walking the dogs. They want to look at doing all this stuff. So that is a better way to do it as well. So hopefully I've helped you guys out there. And again, at any time, if you're listening to this, if you think, gee, I'd like Ed to have a look at my opt-in sequence or my app or my download page or anything that you would like a hot seat on, at any time, 24/7, you can go to live.eddale.co and you can pop in your... And again, if you want me to do a hot seat, try to let me know what the problem is, what the challenge is. Give me as much detail and information as you can, because that can, it can help me out. And you never know your luck. You might, just like the lasses from New Zealand got today. Probably if I had have known that they were New Zealanders first off, I may not have done that, because I am pretty racist against New Zealanders. But, hey, I'll even do hot seats for New Zealanders, because that's the love all, serve all type of person I am. So live.eddale.co. Don't forget, I am coming to the USA. My fall tour dates are now out. It's Saturday 29th and 30th in San Diego. Saturday 5th, Sunday 6th of November in Orlando. It's going to be awesome. It's really cost effective. Also, get in touch with me if you'd like me during that, either side of those dates. If you'd like me to come and do one-on-one, a live 1 day or 2 day workshop with your team, and we'd talk beforehand and, figure out what the issues are and the challenges are and all those sorts of things, shoot me an email, eddale@mac.com, and I'd love to see if we can figure out and make something happen. So with that, thanks very much. Hope you enjoyed this week. Lots of great questions this week. And of course, we'll see you again next week. Yes, I'm just thinking. Yes, I will be here then later in the week. I can't wait. I'm getting together with Dean Jackson and James Franco in Sydney to do his 3-day business blueprint workshop. Very excited. Can't wait. So with that, I will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have fun. Tell your friends if you enjoyed this podcast. Oh, that was the last thing. This podcast we've been going for some time. It would be really useful if you could go to iTunes and rate the podcast. If you happen to be there, or your podcast thing of choice, would love you to rate this podcast. It would be real help, because that's how people discover this stuff. So that would be really nice of you to do. All right, with that, folks, ciao for now. Have a great week wherever you are, and we will speak soon.